The last thing I said to him was that I promise that I will keep on fighting, that I will not give up, that I will do everything I can for his family, meaning his mother, his aunts, his uncles, his cousins, the wild ones, the captive ones, the African ones, the Asian ones. And 24 years on, I'm still working my little ass off to keep that promise to him.
Welcome to Bearing Weight, a space for the stories elephants can't tell, shared by the people who know them best. Hosted by the Weeping Elephant Project. Today we're joined by Katherine Connor, founder of Boon Lott's Elephant Sanctuary in Thailand, which is often referred to as BLES. BLES is one of the world's most respected true sanctuaries for elephants, with individuals rescued from logging, tourism, and other forms of exploitation. Katherine has spent decades building a model of sanctuary that centers the needs of the elephants above everything else, navigating the complicated realities of rescue, rehabilitation, medical care, and long-term sanctuary life. Today, BLES is home to 21 elephants, along with other species like wild boars, tortoises, a crocodile, dogs, cats, and by the time this podcast airs, likely even more. Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd like to start out by asking everybody about their elephant origin story. What led you to commit your life to rescuing elephants?
It is a very long story.
We have plenty of
However,
time.
I will try to condense it. Basically, I was 21 years old and I had a premature midlife crisis, and I was kind of over life in London. I was feeling that all the materialistic stuff was very superficial. I knew that there was more to me as a person, and I knew there was more to life than working and partying and working and partying. And so at 21, I jumped on a plane, quit my job, broke away from all my ties and connections in London. And I ended up in Thailand, and I came to Thailand because I had always loved elephants, but I had never seen an elephant. If there was a documentary on, I was super glued to the TV. My two favorite teddy bears that I still have were a mother elephant and her baby elephant. And I was crazy about them, but I'd never ever really seen one. And so I came to Thailand
Why
thinking
Thailand?
that,
How did you decide on Thailand?
well, when I was at primary school, one of my friends had been on holiday to Thailand, and I remember listening to her stories and thinking how amazing and exotic Thailand sounded. Now, my family had never traveled outside of Europe. So I was the first one in my family, completely on my own, to go, I'm off to Asia, bye. And it was because of this deep love and this curiosity about elephants. And so I came here, and I had my Lonely Planet guide. I had my little book, and I had folded down the pages on all the recommended elephant sanctuaries. And I went to every single one. And every time I kept having a very surreal experience. I would look at the people, the humans, the tourists, and I would see them laughing and being very obnoxious,
Disrespectful.
inconsiderate. Yeah, rude, thoughtless. And then I would look at the elephants, and something inside me would just sink. And I was 21. I didn't know anything about elephants back then, but I could really feel that something was very wrong. I could see the ribs. I could see the dry blood, the puncture wounds. I could see the ropes, the chains, the mahouts with the hooks, smoking. And I knew that was wrong. And it felt so deeply wrong to me. But then I would look back at these humans having such a great time, and I would feel very confused lonely, like I was the problem. I just thought that maybe I was a weirdo, that, if everyone else in the world thought that this was okay, why did I have a problem with it? So I continued traveling around to all the different sanctuaries and determined to find a real place that put the elephants first. And I did not find one.
How many do you think you went to?
Oh, 30, 35. Back then, there weren't
Wow.
very many.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the whole purpose of me coming to Thailand. I was on a 30-day tourist visa and I just wanted to see elephants. And so I traveled up to Lampang, where there is an elephant hospital. And I was very curious about this. And so I went and I saw, and I wasn't particularly moved or impressed. I think at that point I'd become quite disconnected. Um, and then as I was leaving, I saw a handwritten sign that said baby elephant in English. And I thought, "Mm, who doesn't love a baby elephant, right?" So I walked up the hill, and the first thing I saw was the mother, and she was fierce and frightening. And she just kind of stared me down, and I thought, oh my God, she's going to kill me. And then the next thing I saw was this blur kind of underneath, in between her legs. And I just went, oh, oh my God. And so I ran to the stable, the fence, and I stood there for a minute, and the baby came out really slowly, and he kind of walked very awkwardly. And he put his two bottom feet on the rail, the bottom rail of the fence. And very slowly, he just kind of looked up at me, and he lifted his tiny trunk up, and he blew very hard into my face.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know anything, and I just went, "Oh my God, that's so rude." And I blew straight back into his face. He put his trunk in his mouth, ran back to his mum. She spun out with her ears out and looked at me, and I thought, "Oh no, now I'm gonna die. Now she's gonna kill me. I've upset the baby."
How close are you, Kat, to the baby elephant at this point?
Oh, nothing but a rail in between us.
Ah, okay.
The mother was on a chain inside the stable. Her chain must have been maybe 2 meters long. So she couldn't get to me. She couldn't kill me. But he was chain free, and he could pretty much run around and move around. I would say the stable was maybe 8 meters by 8 meters, and it had a thatched roof and a dirt floor. And he had a giant tub of water there to play in. So, it wasn't the worst thing I'd ever seen, but it still didn't feel right. So after that, the baby, he came back and did exactly the same thing. He put his 2 feet on the bottom rail, and he reached up and he blew very gently into my face. And
Wow.
so again, I just followed his lead. And so I blew. I didn't touch him, not at that point. And I just blew very gently back into his trunk, and he put his trunk back in his mouth. And then he smacked me on the hand, and then we continued to play. I don't know what any of that meant, or I didn't know what any of that meant. And we continued to play for easily 2.5 hours. And when I say play, I mean he was like grabbing at my clothes and pulling the Velcro on my shoes and the tags on my backpack, and I was just letting him. I just couldn't believe it. There was nobody else there. The mahout was asleep in the hammock. There were no other tourists there. It was just me and him. And in that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, my life completely changed. And I didn't realize that at the time. You know, when you're 21, I think you're quite confident, quite cocky. You think you know everything. You have all the answers. You've got life figured out. But obviously, as you get older and you look back, I realized that I'd never been so completely lost in my life. So the very next day, I went back. I was supposed to be getting on the bus and going to Chiang Mai, but I went back to the hospital and I just went straight to that stable, straight to the baby elephant. I didn't even know his name at that point. Spent a couple of hours playing with him. I had run out of water. I went down to get a bottle of water. And as I was walking into the coffee shop, there was a man, a Thai man, very well dressed, and he was opening the door and talking to somebody behind him. And so he bumped into me. And I was fine, wasn't a big deal, but he was mortified. And he said, "Oh, please, please, I'm so sorry. Please sit down. Let me make you some tea." And I said, "No, no, no, it's okay. I just really want to get back to the baby elephant. I'm good." And he said, "No, no, I insist. Please sit down." So we ended up talking for a few hours. He spoke fluent English. And he was the managing director of the center where the elephant hospital is. And he told me that that baby elephant, his name was Boon Lott, and Boon Lott was
Uh,
Thai for lucky to survive,
uh,
and that Boon Lott had been born premature. His mother had rejected him. So he hadn't received any milk, any protection, anything from his mother for at least 24 hours. And that the veterinarians had gone up there, brought Bunlot and his mother Pantong to the hospital so that they could teach her how to be a mother and they could monitor him and supplement his diet and hopefully help him grow into a big, strong elephant. So I hear this story and I am blown away. And then Mr. Prasop, the man, he says to me, it's very cringy, but he says to me, "There's something about you. There's something very different about you. I can see it in your eyes." And I thought, oh no, this is really uncomfortable. And he said, "Elephants always choose their people. People never choose to be with the elephants. And you have been chosen by Boon Lott. I can see it. I'm never wrong about these things." And again, I thought, "Wow, that sounds lovely. It's a lovely story, but I don't really believe in anything like that."
right.
So then he said, "I am running a mahout training course for a month, next month, and I want you to be on that course. I want you to live here. I want you to learn about elephants because I really believe that Boon Lott has chosen you, and I want to embrace that." And so I ended up 1 month turned into 2.5 years, and I was living with the mahouts, their families. I was learning Thai. I was absorbing all their knowledge. I was shadowing the veterinarians. And in that 2.5 years, Bunlot ended up having a serious accident that left him suffering from paralysis.
Oof.
And again, it's a very, very long, twisted story, but for 14 months, I slept beside that baby every single night, and I took care of him like you would take care of a sick human baby. Um, I did everything for him. I designed the world's first and only elephant wheelchair. I built a hydrotherapy pool. I read Harry Potter to him. I used aromatherapy. I would massage him. I would sing to him, chop up his supplementary food every night, put the blankets over him, treat his wounds, administer acupuncture, electrotherapy. I did everything that you would do for anyone that you loved that was so sick. And I think that The vets were very, frustrated by me, but also very, interested in me because
Why
I'm not
why
a
were they
veterinarian.
why were they frustrated?
Because I was a young 20-odd something girl, a young white woman kind of going, "Let's do this, let's try that, let's do something new." And the elephant world here is very male. It's very old man. And, they'd never had a foreigner there before. They'd never and they haven't since. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, they'd never really worked with anyone like me before. Like me meaning a Westerner that was just so passionate about learning their language, learning their culture, immersing myself, dedicating my life. They'd never seen anything like that before. And so I think it was, challenging for them at times because I wasn't prepared to just get back into my box. I had ideas and I believed in them, and I was prepared to use my voice to put them into action. And so Boon Lott basically, he went through many ups and downs, and he did teach himself how to walk again. He was standing unaided for about 5 to 6 hours every day.
Hmm,
However, he was suffering from many other health issues, and brittle bones being one of them. And eventually, he broke his femur, which obviously meant that he could no longer stand. He could no longer suckle from his mother. He couldn't be in his wheelchair. He couldn't be active. The bone was protruding out of the skin. Every time he urinated, he would just urinate directly onto the bone. I mean, it really was one of the worst things, still to this day, one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. And so, uh, Boon Lott passed away in my arms, his head on my lap, and I had one arm under his ear, and he had three long black hairs coming out of his chin. And it was so therapeutic for him when I would rub those hairs, it would send him to sleep. So I
wow.
had one hand doing that for him, and then my other hand was wrapped around his trunk so that I could feel his breath. And I just sat there holding him, watching my tears roll down his face, and, I promised him. It's still very emotional. I
Yes.
apologize. He was, like a child to me, but, the last thing I said to him was that I promise that I will keep on fighting, that I will not leave, that I will not give up, that I will do everything I can for his family, meaning his mother, his aunts, his uncles, his cousins, the wild ones, the captive ones, the African ones, the Asian ones. I I made him a promise, and 24 years on, I'm still working my little ass off to keep that promise to him. BLES has been up and running now for 20 years. It'll be 20 years in May. And to date, we have rescued 45 elephants in his name, in his honor, and countless dogs, cats, horses, rabbits, crocodiles, monkeys, people. The list goes on and on and on. And every single soul that we can touch is a tribute to him and the incredible life that he was. And I'm very proud that Boon Lott's story is still being told almost 25 years after his death. and that he's not just a statistic, he's not just another dead baby elephant in Thailand, that people know who he was, they know what he went through, and that we're now living and breathing in his legacy.
That was one of the most fantastic stories I've heard. I mean, about anything. That is extraordinary. Is
He
it
was
writ
extraordinary.
well, you were too, but did you write this somewhere? Is this written down on paper somewhere?
No.
It
Well, it's
really
on the website, but a very
Parts of it are
brief
on the website.
version.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very brief version.
that's, take me a couple minutes to recover. That's extraordinary.
Boon Lott's mom, Peng Tong, ended up being at BLES too. They rescued her and brought her to BLES.
Wow,
She was my founding elephant here.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually would be up in the hills. I rescued her and moved her here before I had even started building BLES. And so we would be, digging and building and planting. And I would look up and Pantong would be up in the hills, kind of looking down on us all. And she was a very regal, majestic, powerful female. And she would just be at the top of the hill, kind of looking down at us. And I would look up and I'd think, does she have any idea that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all of this is happening because of her and her little boy?
It's crazy stuff. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. Well, while David digests that and thinks about any questions that come from the story, I have a question. You were mentioning in the beginning of your story that you went to 30 odd elephant
Mm,
sanctuaries and, all these
yes.
tourists are having fun and they're laughing and thinking that this is the best day ever hanging out with elephants. For those people, considering they've only really seen elephants in a tourism high control setting like that, what's something that you think those people have not seen of elephants, like about their true nature that people should know about?
Well, I think when you are a tourist, I think definitely 20 odd years ago, we were all very prone to leaving our morals at home.
Mhm.
And I think because we didn't have the education that people have today, we didn't have ChatGPT, we didn't have
Yeah.
Google at our fingertips. And so I think definitely back then and still today, when you walk into a camp, an elephant camp or a sanctuary, because they're all calling themselves sanctuaries now, I think it's very easy to forget what is right and wrong. And I think it's very easy to just follow the crowd. And when people are around you and saying, no, the elephant loves to be scrubbed, please scrub the
God.
elephant, it's so good for them.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to just go along with that than question that. And I think people, they just don't see the elephants. That's the problem, is that they see and they put their own needs first. And this is a blanket thing for all animals that are used in tourism all around the world. We want to feed the baby tiger. We want to hug the baby chimpanzee.
Yeah.
We want to bathe the elephant. We're not putting those animals first, and that is the problem. It really is that simple. And I think that if people saw beyond the bathing, the feeding, the riding, the show, you know, they would see these incredible, intelligent, sensitive, sentient beings that deserve so much more than what we are giving them right now.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but have you ever questioned whether this was the right thing for you to be doing?
So many times. There have been so many times. Um, on the surface, everybody thinks that my life is very easy and it's very simple and
Uh,
it's all sparkles and rainbows. And, you know, it is damn hard work. Still being a white woman in this country, still having to prove myself over and over again and trying to hold everything together, trying to prove that I'm not just this hippy dippy white woman from, trying to prove that I am an authority. I do know my stuff. I have been doing this for more than half of my life now. I might not have any degrees or anything like that, but what I have is experience. And there have been many times over the years where I've just thought, this is too much. I can't do this anymore. But there's always been something that has made me very quickly realize how stupid that would be. This is where I was destined to be.
wow.
I when I came to Thailand, I was 21, but I refer to those first few years as my growing up years, or as the period of my life where I became who I was always supposed to be. It was coming to Thailand and being around the elephants and the mahouts and their families that really made me feel like I was finally accepted, which is ironic when I was so different from everyone around me. And yet they just opened up their hearts and their homes and loved me, which I didn't ever really feel when I lived in London. And I know there will be moments in the future where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. But this is where I'm supposed to be.
So what's a typical day for you?
Well, right now, I have one very sick, beautiful elephant. Her name is Boon Lott. She was diagnosed with chronic liver and kidney disease. She has digestive issues. She has a weak heart, and she is very prone to pneumonia. So she came back from the hospital on the 30th of December, and I had to really fight to bring her home. The vets did not want to let her come home. Um, and again, I had to fight. I just feel like I always have to fight on so many different levels. And they didn't want her to come home because, they're veterinarians and they think that every elephant is better with them. And I don't question their skills. However, I think there is a lot of power in being at home and being comfortable. And I think it's a given everybody hates being in hospital. So when I had a meeting with with the vet, sorry, I said, okay, I hear everything you're saying to me. However, there is no cure for anything that she's been diagnosed with. She is not going to get better. She is not going to recover. What you're telling me is that she's dying. And as much as that breaks my heart, I accept it. Death is a part of the circle of life. I accept that. But what I'm thinking is, and what I'm very confused about is, why would you keep her here if she's going to die anyway? Why not let her come home and be with the people she loves? She is an elephant that does enjoy human company. She was kept on her own for 32 years before she came to BLES. So she'd never really been around elephants. So she's quite a unique case, and she really does enjoy human contact and human company. And so I said, I think that she should come home and be with us. And if she's going to pass away, I would rather she passed away at home. So eventually they agreed. She came home on the 30th of December, and on the 1st of January, she collapsed. And I thought, Oh, wow, it was the wrong thing to do. The journey was too much for her. She's gonna die today. This is awful, and I felt very guilty. And she was fighting. She was trying to stand up, and she kept reaching for me. And I went to her, and she was eating, and I said, "Okay, no, she fights, we fight. That's the mantra. They fight, we fight." So I called up all my mahouts at 7 a.m., no, 6 a.m. in the morning on the 1st of January. They were all here by 7 a.m. We got a macro truck, an excavation truck. I hired one from the village, and we had it come and very slowly lift her to her feet. And she was too weak to stand unsupported. So I hired that truck for 8 hours
Mm,
so that, she could just adjust to being vertical again. And while that was going on, my mahouts and I were creating a clinic area for Boon Lott, specifically for her. So we had a support frame, a giant tent, heating lamp, sand pile, a rubber pad for her to stand on, harnesses, food buckets, everything. And again, to cut a very long story short, we're in now the 7th of February. Boon Ma has gained a total of 95 kilos. Her pressure wounds are healing. She's joined us on every elephant walk last week. She's eating nonstop. And I have slept beside her in a tent now for 39 nights, 38 nights. From the 1st of January, I have slept beside her. I have not left that elephant's side. So, to answer your question,
yeah, I was gonna say,
my
if I went
day
back to my lawyer days, I'd say, "Great, but non-responsive."
right. So my day starts at about 3, 4 a.m. I'm cleaning up her poop. I'm chopping up supplementary food for her, readjusting her blanket, redoing the fire for her. I wake up my children who are in the tent beside me, and I then actually go and check on the other elephants, which is super quick because they're normally just all lying down and asleep and fine. And then I walk back to my house. I make breakfast for my children, get them up and off to school. Um, I have guests Monday to Friday, like a volunteer program. So they arrive at 8 a.m. So I welcome them, get breakfast on the table for them. While they're having breakfast, I run round to the medical area, and I currently have 5 elephants that need daily medical treatments. 3 of them are our world famous gossip girls. And I hope one day that you will come to BLES and you will get to meet these superstars because they are absolute. I mean, Danielle's met them and
Yeah.
been around them. They're fabulous. And they unfortunately all suffer from very serious foot issues. And those foot issues mean that they will need daily medical attention for the rest of their lives. So I do that. And then Boonma comes and I treat her wounds. She has some bruising on her head and she has pressure wounds on her hips. Um, and then Ploy also has some head wounds right now. And then I get my volunteers to kind of wash the fruit, rub the tummies of our pigs, put down food for the tortoises. Then we go out on an elephant walk. Now, BLES has over 600 acres of land, and we currently have 19 elephants. So, what that means is that we're able to walk our elephants out to a completely different area every single day. That means that they get fresh, natural fodder every single day. They're able to graze, they're able to walk different terrains, they're able to have exposure to different environments. And I truly believe that that is one of the things that sets us aside from everybody else. There is no other elephant venue in this country that can give their elephants such a huge and varied space. So the elephant walks are an opportunity for us to sit and observe and learn and enjoy. and they last for 3, 4, 4.5 hours. It really just depends on the weather, the location, the elephants, the people too. Some guests are just too hot and just want to come back. So we come back and then I run in and check on our rescued cats. We have 32 rescued cats right now. Um, I have a dog that needs medical treatment right now, so I do that quickly in the afternoon. And then we go out with the mahouts and chop down supplementary food for the elephants to have overnight. And then I put dinner on the table for the guests. And then I run up and cook dinner for my children, and then
This is
take the
ridiculous.
guests back to their guest house. Then I try and do a little bit of online work, and then I shower, and then I get back out to Boon Lott.
I'm packing. I'm packing. I'm on my way.
Yay! Well, Danielle's coming in May.
Well, um,
Join
I may have
us.
to she may have to get me in a duffel bag or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's, it is.
Last time when I was at BLES at the end of 2023, we went on a walk and the elephants had really hiked that day. And so Kat and I were walking up and we were hiking up and we could hear the elephants, we couldn't see them. And so we were kind of going through the bushes and we pop out into a clearing and you can see, and I have videos of this on my phone of 3 or 4 elephants standing on top
Mm,
of the hill there, just eating and grazing. And we sat down with one of Kat's dogs and we just sat and we watched them grazing for hours, I think. And
hours. I remember that.
it was so nice. It was a perfect day.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm very interested in people who are doing this work, nobody's doing this work the way you're doing this work that I know, but there's so much, trauma, I mean, for you and for the elephants, but you, where do you put that? How do you process and deal with the trauma that you're experiencing all the time when you see these elephants in these very, very difficult positions, to say the least?
Yeah. It is, it is definitely hard to manage the darkness and the pain. Um, I think that I really just stay very focused on the end goal. And, I get asked a lot when we're rescuing elephants. And obviously, I go into these venues and I'm seeing horror. And people ask me, how do I deal with that? And I'm like, I don't turn a blind eye. I see it, I hear it, I smell it, I feel it, and I keep it in here and I turn it around and I use that to help me achieve the end goal, which is the freedom, the recovery, the healing, the forest, the space. And I don't really know how that process works, but I've been doing it for years now. And I feel like that's what the elephants do too. I think that when they're in these camps and in these tragic situations, that they kind of go into survival mode. And so they're just kind of dealing with it and putting up with it. And every smack and every hit, they're just kind of going, it's okay. I'm going to survive. I'm going to survive. I'm going to be okay. And then when they get here, I have this little phrase that I say that they're no longer in survival mode. They're now in revival mode.
Mm.
And I do think that that's the first step of their recovery journey is them realizing I no longer have to fight anymore. I'm free. And I think that, there are so many blessings in a day here. And I do think you have to, it sounds a bit of a cliche, but you do have to retrain your brain to look for those blessings, to recognize the beautiful moments. And you have to hold on to those and not forget about the bad stuff because it's the bad stuff that spurs us on. But we can't let it consume us. And I think that also, I mean, I'm in the process of rescuing a few more elephants right now, and they're in very, very sad conditions. But I think that when I go in and I see them there, I can visualize them here.
This conversation has been so insightful that we decided to split it into 2 parts. In the next episode, we'll continue our discussion with Kat and dive deeper into elephant tourism in Thailand, the role of mahouts, and what the recovery process can actually look like for elephants once they arrive at a true sanctuary. So make sure to stick around for part 2 of this conversation. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.